General Manager of DOWASCO, Mr. Ettinoffe, the managing team of DOWASCO. This morning we have with us our financial controller, Ms. Joanna Boston, our chief engineer, Marcus Williams, our head of operations and maintenance department, acting, Mr. Gomez Drigo, and the manager of our human resource and customer service department, Jeanette Ellis. To the media, thank you so much for being here this morning. Emonews, we're streaming live. DBS, Kyrie, also live. DNO, all media houses represented here this morning. Thank you so much for being here. To the listening audience, thank you for joining us for this morning's press conference. Whether you are listening in Dominica or out of Dominica, we welcome you. My name is Kimani Seja, and I am the PRO of DOWASCO. This morning, we are here to receive updates on projects currently being undertaken by the company, and also to hear of key announcements relating to the provision of water. And this morning will be brief. We'll hear from the chairman of the board of directors, and we'll also hear from the general manager, after which the media will have a chance to ask questions. And so without further delay, I'd like to invite to the podium for brief remarks the chairman of the board of directors of DOWASCO, Mr. Lee Patrick.
Mabrika. Good morning to the press. Thank you, Ms. Seja, for that wonderful introduction of the DOWASCO team. Let me just recognize again our general manager, Mr. Ettinoffe, Ms. Boston, Ms. Williams, our really dynamic and very hardworking human resource manager, Ms. Ellis, who has been doing a lot of work in the Colorado territory with a very significant project that is being undertaken there as we speak. And of course, Mr. Drigo has also joined us. A very pleasant good morning to all of the persons listening, both in Dominica and abroad. We are pleased to be here to provide updated information on primarily the increase in rates that customers are going to experience. And we have a very technical team of people here who will address most of the technical issues. I would like this morning just to speak in very broad terms on why and why it's necessary for us to, at this point, have an increase in the rates for the water in Dominica. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize and to sort of wish Kyrie FM, the people who are here from Kyrie FM, our condolences and our thoughts and prayers on the passing of Mr. Frankie Ballard, who was an icon in the media business. And so we want to recognize him this morning, particularly to the family of Kyrie FM who are here today. Okay, so DOWASCO is in a position today in need of revenues, in need of additional resources in order to manage the company and to provide water to all of the residents of Dominica, which is a mandate of the government. As you all know, the company, DOWASCO, is owned 100% by the Government of Dominica. As the result, we could say that it is owned by the people of Dominica. This is a company that belongs to all of us. It is not a private company that is operating with a need for profit. It is a company that operates primarily to provide potable water that is clean, that is the highest quality to all of the residents of this country. And that is a mandate of the government, which is the primary owner, or the sole owner of the water company. In our efforts to do that, we have a number of persons who work for the company and who have worked for the company for many years. We have very distinguished and hard-working employees who work for DOWASCO. And so I want to take this opportunity to also thank them for their selfless service over the years. And we all know the efficiency and the hard work of the employees of DOWASCO. When you have an emergency and there's no water, employees have to get out of bed at midnight at whatever time in the afternoon after work, overtime, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, to respond, to get water to residents. Because we understand the importance of this commodity to the people of this country. And we do everything we can. The employees do everything they can to operate as efficiently and to provide the service that is necessary. But in order to do that, we must have the resources to buy the materials, to pay the employees, to cover the insurance, and to do all of the things that are necessary in order to get the company to operate at a maximum and efficient level. We have had several significant and serious setbacks over the last few years. We've had Erica, we've had Maria, and we had COVID. Now, Erica and Maria did significant damage to the water infrastructure of this country. Many of us know of the sort of pipes, intakes blocked, just significant damage. That required a lot of money to repair the equipment, to buy new equipment. Excuse me. And that is money that we did not have in the bank. So as a result, we have had to borrow significantly from the financial institutions. We have had to cut back significantly on the stocks of the company, which is critically important for emergencies. In the event that we have a hurricane or another tropical storm that wipes our systems up, something is not working correctly? Oh, sorry. We must replace and replenish the stocks of the company, and that requires a lot of money. With the advent of COVID, the supply system was really affected, and so we have to pay up front for supplies. There was a time back a few years ago when we could order things, have installment payments. Nowadays, all of the people who are supplying these parts to the company want money upfront. So we find ourselves in a position where the revenues of the company cannot meet the expenditures that we have on a monthly and annual basis. For the last 3 years, we have been way under budget. So what has happened? We have a very low stock of supplies. If we have a hurricane this season, if we don't replenish, we'll have serious problems because we will not have the parts on hand that we can simply go to the storeroom and pick them up and repair the systems like we did after Maria and after Erica. So it is critically important for us to have stocks. Our employees, like all of the other employees of the government and other private sector employees, require pay increases, require uniforms, require all of the things that employees need in order to successfully and efficiently do their jobs. We have to continue to do that, and we have to provide for the employees who provide the service to the community. So we want to say to you and to everyone listening this morning that this rate increase is not something that we have just decided overnight that DOWASCO needs a rate increase, so let's just raise the rates on water. This is something that we have been struggling with and contemplating for the last 3 years. The company has been really having significant financial difficulties. So to the customers who are listening, we want to say that we understand that this is going to create some difficulty financially. We have tried our very best in collaboration with the government to keep the increase to a minimum, to a bare minimum. We are not making a profit. We are not trying to put a lot of money into the bank. We just simply need to meet the cost of running the business. Because if we do not meet the cost of running the business, then at the end of the day, it is the consumer who is going to suffer. Because we will not be able to respond to emergencies. When equipment fails, we won't be able to replace it. When pipes break, we won't be able to fix them. And our employees will be unhappy, and the entire country will be unhappy. So we want to ask for your consideration and for your understanding, knowing that we are doing this with the best interest of the country and the water system, not for the best interest of employees. We are doing it for the best, with the best interest of the consumer, so that we can continue to provide the service that we have provided so efficiently and so effectively in the past. And we want to continue to do the same thing in the future. If at the end of the day the rate increases generates a certain amount of revenue that allows the company to meet all of its expenditures and to cover all of its costs, and if there is some revenue left over, that will either go back into some sort of emergency fund that the Prime Minister has actually required of the company, or into the expense of additional equipment, additional pipes, additional things that we will need. And if the company ever really has more revenues than it requires for its operation, then just as we have asked for a rate increase, we will ask for a rate decrease. That's the bottom line. So we thank you for your understanding, and I am going to stop here and allow for the General Manager to maybe go into some more specifics and more details of this particular initiative and of the other projects which are currently ongoing. We have a very significant project ongoing in the Kalinago territory as we speak. That project is costing us up to upwards of $6 million to realign the entire water system because of the road construction. And that cost was not factored into the construction of the road. As a result, DOWASCO had to actually fund that initiative. So we want to ask the General Manager, well, I'm just saying, we're asking the General Manager, I'm just wrapping up my comments, and the lady who is running the show will take over. Thank you so much for your presence here today to the media, and we thank all of those who are listening, and we ask again for your understanding and cooperation. Thank you.
At this moment, I want to invite General Manager of DOWASCO, Mr. Ettinoffe, to share more information.
All right. Good morning to the media houses representing here this morning. I want to thank the Chairman of the Board of DOWASCO, Board of Directors of DOWASCO this morning for his presentation here. Recognize the other members of staff, management staff of DOWASCO here this morning. And to all the listeners of the various radio stations, locally, internationally, regionally, I want to say thank you for being part of this and for listening. We look forward to your questions and comments that will come as a result. My chairman has done a thorough job, so it makes my job very easy. He's probably said all that I had to say, just a few things I will add. I do not want to repeat too much. So let me just give you a little background of DOWASCO. What is DOWASCO? What DOWASCO is. And basically DOWASCO, the Dominica Water and Sewage Company Limited, it's a registered company under the Companies Act of Dominica. It is wholly owned by the government and people of Dominica. It is governed under the Companies Act, as I indicated. There is an SRO number 60, I believe, of 1977, which gives guidance to all of the things that we do. The Act of Parliament that has enacted DOWASCO is Act number 17, I believe, of 1989. And so these are, this is how DOWASCO is structured. DOWASCO is the sole company providing potable water and sewage services to Dominicans. Of course, we have sewage services mainly for the city of Roseau, parts of Canefield and Jimmet. The intention is to expand that to other parts of Dominica as funds become available. It's a very expensive venture, and I cannot tell you when and how soon those funds will be made available. All right, so DOWASCO over the years has had several challenges. There was a time when things were pretty okay, we were doing well. The tariffs were the very same that we charge today. 13 years ago, we all pay the same thing that for water, and those who pay for sewage services, we pay the same today, 13 years later, as we paid in 2010 and 2011. There have been no changes, no increases since then. Nonetheless, DOWASCO's cost structure, as you heard clearly from the chairman, has evolved over the years. Supplies are getting more and more expensive. It's becoming increasingly difficult to source supplies, especially following Tropical Storm Erika in 2015, Hurricane Maria in 2017, and the COVID pandemic from summer about 2020 to 2022, end of 2022. Supplies that would take us 3 months and 4 months to procure now takes us 18 months to procure. I can tell you, because during the pandemic, we placed orders for certain supplies that used to be manufactured in the US. After probably 6 months after paying the deposit on the orders, and placing the orders and paying the deposit, we were told that these supplies are no longer manufactured in the US as a result of COVID-19. They were manufactured in some countries in the Far East. And it took us 18 months after we paid for those supplies to get those supplies into Dominica. So these are just some of the challenges that we face. The cost structure has changed significantly. In 2007, the company paid no VAT. In 2007, the company began paying VAT, value-added tax on everything it purchases, every contract issued, with no way of recovering VAT from the customers or from anybody. So this is probably one of the only companies in Dominica, maybe the only one, that pays VAT but cannot recover VAT from anybody at all. So these are some of the challenges that DOWASCO face over the years. Tropical Storm Erika, Hurricane Maria, we saw the company having to incur significant costs by way of loans from international agencies, Caribbean Development financing agencies such as the Caribbean Development Bank, loans from the Government of Dominica, grant funding sourced by the Government of Dominica for the company, and loans even provided directly by the government to the company, none of which you could have paid back during that time, 2017 to now. As a result of which, the government has so kindly decided to convert those loans and payments on loans to the company as government's contributed capital to the company. This is how, I'm saying this to say, this is how much the government has done to assist the company in keeping afloat, in keeping its operations going in the interest of the people of Dominica. We're talking about $31 million that government has contributed to the company over the last few years. The Caribbean Development Bank made a loan to DOWASCO in 2014, so Williams. In 2014, thereabout, for the upgrade of DOWASCO's main water system, that is the area referred to as Water Area 1, with the intake at the Springfield River, and that system supplies water to Miro all the way to Castle Comfort. We're talking here of a $24 million loan, with the Government of Dominica and DOWASCO contributing an additional $9 million to see that project to fruition. I'm pleased to report today that within the next 2 months, that project will be fully completed. It involves improved filtration systems so that when it rains and the water gets turbid, we will no longer have to be shutting off water as frequently as we had to do in the past. There will be upgraded treatment facilities, upgraded storage tanks, upgraded intake, and so forth, so that it becomes a more climate resilient water system, a more reliable water system. That's $33 million, one project. The government has embarked on a major project, the New International Airport Development Project. And for that project alone, the government had to relocate a section of the Wesley community, and DOWASCO had to put in a new water system, water reticulation, storage tank, pipelines, and everything that was required to ensure that these people had water in that community at a cost of $4.5 million contributed by the Government of Dominica. There are several other major projects that are ongoing. The chairman alluded to the East Coast Road project. It's a major road that the government is undertaking. Our pipelines, because of the road expansion, would have fell in the center of the new road. It was currently on the side of the road, but because of the expansion of the road, would now be in the center of the road and had to be relocated to the side of the new road, some 44,000 feet of 4-inch or 6-inch pipes, at a cost of $6 million EC dollars. That's a loan that DOWASCO has to pay back. We've had to provide water because of the decline in volumes, reduction in volumes in various water sources, water systems, rivers and streams. We are now supplying the area of Soufriere all the way from water from Pishley. So from Pishley, for those of you who know Dominica well, we run that water up to some parts in Granby there, and from there we pump water to the top of Tetmon and then drop that water down the mountainside to get into Soufriere. That is the extent to which the company goes to provide water to Dominica. Completed just about a year ago a new water system for the Mount Prosper area at a cost of about $3 million, 1.8 of which was provided by the BNTF. The rest had to be provided by the Government of Dominica and DOWASCO. In other words, every time a donor agency gives you money for a project, your contribution must be part of it. Government contribution must be part of it. So these are the things that we found ourselves doing. So it got to the point over the last 2 years in particular that DOWASCO could not pay its major loans. So the Government of Dominica had to pay those loans on behalf of DOWASCO and still contribute towards these capital projects, as I indicated. It became untenable. With the financing provided by the CDB for the Water Area 1 project, the CDB also commissioned a water tariff review on behalf of DOWASCO and Dominica, the Government of Dominica, and that study was undertaken by a firm, Water and Wastewater Solutions, out of Canada. And that study recommended that the rates that DOWASCO should charge for water, the increasing rates that we should be charging for water, was 61% for sewage services and 41% for water for a 4-year period, meaning that it would have to be reviewed after 4 years. That 4-year period ended in 2022. That study was concluded in 2018, but we never applied any of the rates or the increases that were recommended. And that is because, we made representation to the government. But the government, in its own judgment, in its own deliberate judgment, decided, and that's what the government said, it decided that it would not increase the cost of living burden on the customers, on the public at that particular point in time. And so the government decided, since they were not going to do that, they would assist DOWASCO in doing what it needed to do. Nonetheless, that's 6 years later, and it became very untenable And so DOWASCO and the government, DOWASCO made several proposals of different kinds to government as to what could be done. And DOWASCO and government now decided on what is referred to here as a water guarantee charge. That is to say that the tariffs remain the same. There's not going to be an increase in the basic tariffs for water or for sewage services. What the government instead did was to approve a water guarantee charge for for everybody. But to divide the customer base in a certain, and that is the DOWASCO is doing now, that's what we are working on now, to effect that charge from 1st June 2024. So we are breaking down the customer base into various sections. We have the large businesses, we have the medium-sized businesses, and we have the small businesses as 3 different categories. And of course, we have the domestic customers. I'll say to you that the smallest increase is to the domestic customers. All right? The larger businesses will take the larger part of the increase of the water guarantee charge. And so for the large businesses, I'll go right into the charge now. The large businesses will pay an additional $800 per month. I'm talking about the large businesses in Dominica. $800 a month for the water guarantee charge. The medium-sized businesses will pay $175 per month. Small business, $100 per month. And the domestic customers will pay only $15 per month in addition to what they pay now. The consumption rates are not going to change at all. So the government, in its own deliberate assessment of this scenario, thought it was the best scenario of all those that we came up with over the years, about 7 to be exact, and has approved this to take effect from June 1st, 2024. So these are basically, or this is basically what the water guarantee charges, and these are the charges for the various sections and various sectors of the economy that will be charged going forward from June 1st, 2024. This will allow the company to meet all its loan payments, because government looked at the shortfall that the company was experiencing, to meet all its loan payments to its suppliers, its electricity bill, bills to local suppliers, to international and regional suppliers. And it is not intended in any way, and I think the chairman alluded to that, to provide a profit for DOWASCO. The government has made it very, very clear. It is basically to meet the shortfall. If for any reason there is a surplus, it must go, as I think the chairman alluded to that also, into a special account that will be managed by the Government of Dominica and DOWASCO, and used solely for emergency purposes. So there's a hurricane somewhere that interrupts the system. We need some funds to immediately mobilize and go in there. We would be able to get some monies from that account if there is any surplus in there. It provides also for DOWASCO to take out insurance for its major assets that are uninsured at this point in time. I can tell you in 2015, for Tropical Storm Erica, we had no insurance on these major assets. We had insurance on vehicles, on buildings, on equipment, and so on. But there are certain categories of assets, the water intakes, the pipelines close to the rivers, those are uninsured. Local insurance companies will not provide insurance for those assets. We did get in 2015 following Tropical Storm America, but as a result of the payout that insurance companies had to do in 2017 after Maria, no insurance company, not here, not in the region, will touch any assets such as water intakes, water tanks, and so forth. There is a company, however, the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance, parametric insurance basically. There is an arm of this insurance now that is aimed at providing coverage to water utilities, called the Caribbean Water Utilities Insurance Company, special portfolio, which will provide insurance for those kinds of assets. But the initial premium for DOWASCO to participate in that is $1.2 million US. First premium. it is recognized that it's very, very high. And, you know, if you're left alone, we couldn't find $3.5, $3.8 million to pay insurance on top of what we pay now. But $600,000-$700,000 a year in insurance is going to pay another 1.2 million, 3.8 million EC dollars. That was impossible for us to do. So the proposals of this insurance company has also sought assistance from the UK and so forth, and the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank. And given the importance of this insurance, they say, look, the utilities need that. Cannot charge the people for that. So they have decided to subsidize that insurance for us significantly. Final thing is being worked on, but we may pay less than 50% of that cost to get our assets insured, starting from June of this year. So we had to something had to be factored into as well in the shortfall to take care of these kinds of costs, to ensure that the utility moves forward in a much more resilient fashion, and that every Dominican will be happier after a hurricane, after a storm, after a disaster. Water could be restored quicker, you know, and people see those things and they never realize the cost for doing those things. But these are the things that the company is doing, and the Government of Dominica is doing for the populace here in Dominica. A very small fraction of our bills, that's our water bill. Very small fraction. But it costs a lot. You know, I always say to people, the pipes follow every hill, every valley, every slope that you see. You know, it's not something you can just run with. It goes up, it goes down, it goes across. And just like the land tenure is, or terrain is, that's exactly how the pipes have to run. And that is what makes it very, very costly. I've said to people sometimes that pipes we were paying $300 a length for 12-inch ductile iron pipes. Chief engineer is here, operations manager here, financial coordinator is here. We're paying $300 and something a length for 20-foot length of this pipe 20 years ago. Not there for 20, but probably 10, 15 years ago. The cost of that same pipe today is $1,200 and something. This is how the cost structure has changed. You know, so it's not anything that exorbitant really. It's just the cooperation that we need from the people, from the media, from all of us, to make sure that this thing works and we can continue to boast of water coverage to 100% of Dominica in the quickest possible time. I want to thank you for listening and stand ready to answer your questions, take your comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ettinoffe. And at this moment, we just heard what the water guarantee charge is. So there'll be no increase in tariffs, as Mr. Ettinoffe just outlined, but a water guarantee charge for various sections of our customer base. So large businesses, $800, medium-sized, $175, small, $100, and domestic customers, $15. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and do so. Yes. You're asking what the customers pay before. What were the what are the current rates? You have to come here to answer.
Good morning, all. The domestic customers, the unmetered customers paid a flat rate of $48.30. The domestic metered customers paid from 0 to 1,000 gallons, $21.62, and the additional 1,000, $10.12. The commercial customer paid from 0 to 1,000 gallons, $36.57, and additional 1,000 gallons, $13.57. That's the existing rate. Sewage, $20.30 flat rate. That remains the same. And for commercial customers, 45% of their water charge, with a minimum of $45 and a maximum of $3,000. Thank you.
You got that? Any other questions?
Can you provide us with an update as to how many customers are presently DOWASCO's water system? In addition, for transparency, the customers were heavily spoke on their debt burden. Would you be able to provide us with a figure as to how many? I heard numerous figures, $9 million to this institution, another $33 million was quoted. Can you provide us with an exact figure of the company's current debt burden ratio, please, and just for transparency?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that question. As regards to our customer database, we have approximately 23, I say approximately, I mean, this thing changes every day. You have a new customer. 23,000 domestic customers and 3,000, almost 3,000, little under 3,000 commercial customers. From that, about 100 are large customers. Right? In terms of the company's debt burden, what I indicated, the 31 million is what the company was owing the Government of Dominica as debt for loans paid by the government on behalf of the company, loans granted to the company after Hurricane Maria, and basically, yes. That was 31 million, which the government has now has decided to convert to contributed capital, which means the company no longer have to pay that debt. But in terms of other debts to the National Bank of Dominica, Dominica Social Security, to the Caribbean Development Bank, the total debt there is about 71 million EC dollars. Yeah, with a debt repayment annually of about $7.7 million.
Customers in the Montreal and Salisbury area, since the news broke of the they have reported unreliability in their service following the passage of tropical storm with Maria. Now, what these customers are saying is that questions are now rising whether with this increase that they will see better service in that area in a week, 2 to 3 interruptions per week, sometimes 3-4 days. So will they see improved service with this now potentially with this increase?
Yes, I'm happy for that question actually, and I'm happy the way you phrased it as well. For the West Coast, DOWASCO, with grant funding provided by the Government of Dominica, prior to Tropical Storm Erica, had invested in excess of $30 million on the West Coast, providing water from 2 intakes, Picard in Portsmouth and Coolibistry River in Coolibistry for the entire system there. It was working well. That was grant funding. I didn't mention it earlier, but that was grant funding from the EU. Tropical Storm Erica disrupted that system. So I mentioned 2 intakes. Picard could supply water from Capuchin to Coolibistry, Salisbury, as well as Coolibistry could supply the same from Salisbury, Grand Savan to Capuchin. And it was working very well. But, tropical disasters. Tropical Storm Erica destroyed the system completely. The intake was completely buried. The new filtration plant that was put in there rendered completely useless. We did go back in and install or reinstall the system partially following Tropical Storm Erica at a cost of about $2 million. And the people were pretty happy. They were receiving water again. Hurricane Maria did much more devastating works there. And so we did restore some water. We did a pumping station even on the Macushri, the lower end of Macushri, to pump to a new storage tank that was built at the top of Monrachet to serve the area, the Monrachet and so on. And so when you rely on pumping, you rely on electricity and so forth, you always run into those kinds of problems. So if the electricity company, for some reason, has had a disruption in their system, you're going to have a disruption in your pumping system. For that purpose, we install a standby generator that we use very often when the grid would be down.
So we recognize that there is some disruption in the Kulibistri area, but the solution to that really is to go back on the Kulibistri River and reinstate that major intake that was done there. And I did not mention, and that's why you mentioned it, the Water Sector Strategic Development Project, funded by the UK government this time, following Hurricane Maria. The UK government did promise the Government of Dominica some money, from which the government earmarked a certain sum for the DOWASCO. And so I can tell you now that we'll be getting $13.6 million US dollars, about 36 million EC dollars. And so there are 4 projects that have been prioritized under that funding. Kulibistri, so that Kulibistri, Montrachet, Grand Savannah will have a better water supply, more reliable, more resilient. Cassibrus, another one. Grand Form, Montrachet, and River Civic, that's one system, and Calibishi. We are at the stage now where we are inviting, and you might have seen this in the papers, you might have heard it on your radio stations. We are inviting expressions of interest from persons to serve as a consultant to supervise the construction works on this project. We are at that stage where we are almost ready to begin physical construction. And so that consultant has to be in place. Is a requirement of the FCDU as a former Commonwealth Development Office, Foreign Commonwealth Development Office of the UK, and the CDB, which is also managing that fund. That's a requirement. So that consultant must be in place before we could draw down a cent to begin physical construction. In the meantime, because of the time it takes to get pipes and fittings into Dominica, we are seeking the approval of the CDB and of the FCDU to purchase all the pipes and fittings that are required. We'd have to put them in storage, have somebody manage that. We have to be accountable. FCDU and CDB don't give you money like that. You must be accountable. And so that we anticipate that by the end of the first half of this year, certainly by the third quarter of this year, we will see physical works starting on those 4 projects. So that there will be much improvement for Cassibrus, for Monjon, River Civic, Grand Fort, and for Calibishi, and of course Kulibistri and Grand Savannah. So that is well on the cards. Lots of money, if you like, earmarked for these 4 projects, over $36 million. That you could see what, sorry? Oh, at the crease. That's an interesting question. From where I sit, from what I've seen over the years, I don't know that costs go down. I mean, it'd be nice if something could happen and we could decrease the water rates, as the chairman indicated. I'm sure that's the chairman wishes. I'm sure he said that more than once, you know. So it's something that I would be happy to see, but I can't give you a time frame on this if at all this can happen, because pipes, as I indicated to you, at a certain price today. In 2 years' time, next year, I expect to see increases in those things. We see what is happening now with the Panama Canal and so on, and what is happening to ships transporting goods and so forth from the Asian countries and so forth. Shipping costs continue to go up all the time. We saw a little reduction after the COVID pandemic, you know. They were beginning to go down, but that was short-lived. Shortly after, we see increases as a result of what is happening in the channel. So it's our wish that would happen. I can't give you a time frame on something like that.
Mention was made
Yes.
you have a large number of customers, and you plan on making them the customers that want to,
Yes. Great question. All our customers should have been metered by now. Some remain unmetered for a little while. It was just under 2,000. We were trying to reduce it all the years. By start of the pandemic, it was a little under 2,000. It has gone back up a little bit now to over 2,000. And the reason for that is one of the suppliers I told you that moved from manufacturing from the US to another country, I believe is Malaysia, takes about 18 months to get meters into Dominica. The price of meters, the cost of meters has also gone up extraordinarily. And these are not things we charge for, by the way. Meters to customers we do not charge. So DOWASCO bears the cost of the meters. A few years ago, meters were like $200 and something, $300. Meters right now are way over $400, almost $500 for one meter. And we bear that cost. We do not pass on the cost of the first meter to any customer. So the intention is to have everybody metered, but we're going to try to do it gradually as funds become available. We can do 500 in a year, we'll do 500, 300 in a year. But the goal really is to try to get this done within a 2-year period. And that's the time.
Question. I know the company also deals with sewage on island. When you mentioned that it's very expensive currently to operate this, will any changes be made? I know presently customers pay about $20 monthly. Will any changes be made in the cost of sewage?
Yes, so customers pay $20.30, domestic customers, that is, monthly sewage services. Those are the ones connected to the sewage services, right? 2030. The government, in its own deliberate judgment, again wants to keep the cost down to the domestic customer, has decided not to increase the rates on sewage either. So none of the rates as they are now are going up. It's just the new charges, but not for sewage services. Even for the commercial sector, the sewage services, they pay a lot more really than the domestic customer. The average commercial customer pays $45 for sewage services. A few pay 45% of the water consumption, up to a maximum of $3,000. So in other words, if the commercial customer, that 45% of the water charges would amount to more than $3,000, simply charge $3,000. We're not allowed to go over that. Yeah, so that is not changing either. But sewage does cost a lot and has to be subsidized all the time. There's a loan taken by the government some time ago. I guess we pay that off now, right? But the interest on that loan alone used to be $2 million a year. And the revenue from sewage was about $300,000, $400,000 a year. That's to tell you what extent it had to be subsidized. And I'm happy those questions are coming up because people say a lot of things but not realizing the reality of, what the situation really is. Lots of the DOWASCO costs heavily subsidized.
I have a question as well. Okay. For those just tuning in, we'd like you to reiterate the effective date of these charges, and also if you could just reiterate the charges themselves, and as well as to differentiate between the large businesses as well as the medium businesses.
Okay. Well, yes. So the charges is a water guarantee charge, and that will take effect from June 1st, 2024. All right? The charge for the large businesses, $800. For the medium businesses, $175. And the small businesses, $100. For the domestic customer, $15. We are categorizing putting those businesses in various categories now, doing our own research with the assistance of the persons who would know. And so we'll be able to tell exactly what is large, what is small, what is medium.
Okay, and another question. Are there any concessions or relief for farmers, especially those using irrigation systems, since these systems consume a large quantity of water depending on the farm size and irrigation regime?
Okay, well, DOWASCO's mandate up to this point in time is not to provide irrigation water. So there's no special rates for irrigation water. Yeah. As a matter of fact, in areas where there is water challenges, we don't even encourage persons to use the pipe-borne water that's treated and provided for domestic purposes, for irrigation purposes. Yes, we don't have a lot of control over that. If somebody has their pipe-borne water and they put a hose to their pipe and they run it across their farm and so on, can monitor all of those things and can police all of those things. So they simply pay the domestic rates. So DOWASCO does not have special rate for commercial, for farm, for water for farms, commercial farms. We don't.
We have 5 more minutes, so one more question.
Just today, I know areas in Dominica. Will that affect the closure of standpipes or will that continue?
Okay. Standpipes, as we all know, is a source of wastage of much water. We see cars being washed under standpipes, people washing under standpipes, and in some cases, people bathing under standpipes. According to the Act and the SRNO, we know those things are illegal and persons can be arrested, persons can be fined, persons, can be even imprisoned for doing those things. It's just illegal to do those things under standpipes. So we have a number of standpipes that the government is for. Yeah? So standpipes are placed there by the government and paid for by the government, and the intention was for persons who really cannot afford a water service and who needs to have access to some water could use that standpipes. During the pandemic, we also increased the numbers by about 28, I believe, in Roseau, where you have these facilities where persons would wash their hands, and the government was encouraging the whole issue of sanitation, sanitizing your hands and so forth to help curb the pandemic. And those were supposed to have been for the pandemic, and they are still there, still being abused, I must say, some of them. And I'd be happy to remove some of them, but I'd have to, with permission from the government, to do that. So it's a discussion that is ongoing as to the value and the continued need for some of those standpipes, and I'm sure that will be reviewed from time to time.
Mr. Ettinoffe, are there areas in Dominica with no potable water? If yes, do you plan on putting potable water in these areas?
Are there areas in Dominica? There are small communities that probably developed over time. I can point to one between the Pocasset-Cashbridge Junction there, former area there. Between there and, say, Brantford area. There are small communities, a few houses where persons just build on agricultural lands and so on, not housing development, which do not have potable water by DOWASCO. But every major community, every formal residential community in Dominica has potable water. Yes, there are persons who build at the top of those communities and may struggle to get, sometimes to get some water and so forth. But every major community has potable water.
Okay, and last question. What is the price of a new meter for new clients, and how much was it before?
Yes, so I just mentioned that a new meter for a domestic customer now, a half-inch meter, is about $500. That used to be $240, $250 several years ago, a few years ago. But the customer does not pay the price for the first meter. That cost is borne by DOWASCO. The $240 was borne by DOWASCO. The $500 is still borne by DOWASCO. Customers don't pay for that. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ettinoffe. I really want to thank the media this morning for showing up and for asking these questions, very important questions that the listening audience, would have liked to ask themselves. I want to thank the Chairman of the Board of Directors for being here with us this morning, the management team of DOWASCO, all those of you who joined us live on DBS Radio and on Kyrie FM and also on Emonews. Thank you so much for joining us for today's press conference. During the course of tomorrow and next week, Mr. Ettinoffe will be live on DBS Radio and Kyrie FM on Q95. So persons who are listening can still listen to those programs. And if you have questions, you can call in and ask those questions. The programs will be in the morning from between 9 and 10 o'clock. So be sure to tune in. The first one is on Kyrie. That's tomorrow, Thursday, from 9 to 9:30. So again, thank you to everyone and have a pleasant day.